Chapter 3, Section 3, we are doing more practice with multi-step inequalities, and we're going to have some with the identity versus the contradiction. The identity is when all real numbers are a solution, and the contradiction is when there are no solutions. So starting with this first one, we will not subtract x from both sides. We will subtract 3x from both sides. X minus 3x is a negative 2x, and that is less than 8. From there, we divide by a negative 2, and when you divide by a negative, that becomes x is greater than negative 4. Down here, we will have an open circle on negative 4, and everything to the right colored in. Number 2, you subtract 3.5x from both sides, and that becomes 2.5x minus 1 is less than or equal to 4. From there, you add 1 to both sides, and you have 2.5x is less than or equal to 5. And when you divide both sides by 2.5, you are left with x is less than or equal to 2. Graphing that, you will have a closed circle on 2 and everything to the left colored in. Number 3, we need to distribute. So that becomes 2k minus 6 is greater than 3 plus 3k. You subtract 2k from both sides, and that becomes negative 6 is greater than 3 plus k. And when you subtract 3 from both sides, then that becomes negative 9 is greater than k. Graphing that, you will have an open circle on the negative 9, and this says negative 9 is greater than k. Negative 9 is the biggest of everything, so we want the numbers that are smaller, so we want the numbers that go here to the left. Number 6, as we distribute, this becomes 6y minus 4 is greater than or equal to 6y plus 21. Subtract 4 and a subtract 4 becomes a 6y minus 8 is greater than or equal to a 6y plus 21. Subtracting 6y from both sides, those cancel, and you have negative 8 is greater than or equal to 21. Now that is not a true statement. Negative a is not greater than 21. It will never be greater than 21. So there is no solution. No number can go in there and make that a true statement, and you can write empty set if you would like. Number 5, that becomes 1/4 p minus 10/4 is greater than 6 minus 4p. I'm going to change both of these to decimals, and we have 0.25p minus 2.5 is greater than 6 minus 4p. we look at the smaller of the two variables. This -4 is smaller, so we add 4p to both sides. So 4.25p minus 2.5 is greater than 6. Add 2.5 to both sides, and you have 4.25p is greater than 8.5. And when you divide both of those, you have p is greater than 2. Number 3, or number 6, how did I come up with number 3? Looking at the ends, if you subtract 1/3 n from both sides, four n minus 1/3 n is 3 2/3 n. And with these fractions, I'm going to make them have the same denominator, and that will be 3/6 is greater than or equal to 4/6 plus 3 2/3 n. From there, we subtract 4/6 from both sides, and you will have a -1/6 is greater than or equal to, I'm going to call this 3.3 repeating n. I changed that from a fraction to a decimal. And then from there, dividing both sides by 3.3 repeating. With my graphing calculator, I will do -1 divided by 6 divided by 3.3 repeating. And I like to add a bunch of 3's in there, and then that ends up being -0.05. Alright, this is not 3.3 repeating. Sorry about that. 2/3 is 0.6 repeating. And now let's try that again. -1/6 divided by 3.6 repeating, and we end up with -0.45 is greater than or equal to n. -0.045. Sorry about that. And the last one on this page, when we distribute, 1/2 times 2x is x. 1/2 times a -7 is a -3.5. When you subtract x from both sides, you have -3.5 is less than or equal to 10. -3.5 is less than or equal to 10 is a true statement. It's always going to be a true statement, so that answer will be all real. The next page, we have some story problems. USA Today charges a fee of $650 plus $80 a week. So I'm going to write that as $650 plus 80x. Grand Rapids Press charges $145 a week. And it says, for how many weeks will the Grand Rapids Press be, should say less expensive, I'm sorry, for how many weeks will the total cost the USA Today be more expensive than the cost of the Grand Rapids Press? So we want to know when this one becomes more. Solving that, we will subtract 80x from both sides. And then we have $650 is less than 65x. And if you divide both sides by 65, you have 10 is less than x. Now at 10 weeks, these are going to be equal. And it says, for how many weeks will the USA Today be more expensive? This is less than 10. So from 0 to 9 weeks, the USA Today is more expensive. At 10 weeks, they are equal, and 11 or more weeks, the Grand Rapids Press is more money. So to answer the question for how many weeks will the total cost of the USA Today be more expensive, that will be from 0 to 9. Number 9, Paula has raised $325 for her softball team's fundraiser. She wants to raise at the very least $605. So she's already done $325. She's going to add some more to it. And this $605 is the least, is the smallest amount that she wants to raise. So this is going to be bigger than or equal to the $605. So she will subtract $325 from both sides. And then you end up with x is greater than or equal to 280. So Paula wants to raise more than $280. Number 10, to win the blue ribbon for the heaviest pumpkin crop at the county fair, average of her pumpkins must be greater than 819 pounds. So however, whatever that average is has to be greater than 819. One of her pumpkins weighs 887. The other one, we don't know. Those two divided by 2 needs to be greater than 819. So solving that, we will multiply both sides by 2. And we have 887 plus x is greater than 1638. And when you subtract 887, that becomes x is greater than 751 pounds. That means her pumpkin must weigh more than 751 pounds. Number 11, the average of Jim's 3 test scores must be at least 80 to get a B in the class. So this is the least, the smallest it can be. He got a 77 on his first test and 81 on his second, and we don't know about his third. Average of those 3 test scores, you add them and divide by 3. Solving this, we're going to multiply both sides by 3. And I'm going to combine these two, so that becomes 158 plus x is greater than 240. And then when we subtract 158 from both sides, you have x is greater than 82. So Jim needs more than 82% on his next test.